Well, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to shake it up and do an interaction of a story that totally fits what fear can do. You know, some of us, like me, can really shut down with fear. And then there's other people that can just step into pride. Both are very expensive and very costly. Recently, we had a chance and were given an opportunity to do rappelling. Now, if I was in my normal state of being, I'd have gone, sure, let's do it. But on that day, I just knew my mindset wasn't quite right. And so I decided, no, I don't think I'm going to go with everybody else.
Now, a thought on that. I almost stayed in the camp because I just didn't feel like moving. And yet this opportunity had presented itself for me to do something I've always wanted to do with somebody who was a great coach, with a community of people I loved. So there's an opportunity for me to get out and step into something that I knew was going to be an experience that was going to take me out of my comfort zone. So I loaded in the car and said, yes, I'm going to do this, even though I didn't feel like doing it.
And I chose to stay back at camp and spend time with Anna and a few friends. And that was the right decision for me that day. And Forrest made the right decision for him that day. So we're going to share that story. But in the story, just remember, on this occasion, I made the right decision not to go, and Forrest made the right decision to go. So Forrest, why don't you start us with setting the stage for what happened?
So we jumped in the cars and headed off with like about 15 of us. And
what is it you're going to do?
We're going to do rock rappelling.
Ah.
Now, here's the key takeaway for this lesson. We teach what I'm going to talk about. I thought since I teach it, I know it. And there's a real difference, Cheryl, between teaching something and actually having had an experience with this. Now, we're doing rock rappelling with a man who's been doing it his entire life and has done this with youth group and people all over the country. So he's an expert at it, it turns out. The last time I did something similar to this, where I did a lot of snow and ice climbing when I was in high school, so that was like 1972, which I just assumed would transfer over into this experience.
48 years ago.
Yeah. So I just assumed I would do well. And so I stepped back and I waited for almost everybody else to go because I was learning from them, because I wanted to know that when I did it, well, my ego was like, you are the movement coach.
The expert.
So I wanted to make sure this went really well. Plus, I saw a tremendous opportunity to get a great video for, you know, YouTube and all that stuff. So I had my selfie stick and I had my camera ready to go. So this, for me, was not going to be about the experience of learning how to rappel. It was going to be about taking a video of me learning how to rappel. Bad plan, part 1.
Actually, you know, that ties in a teaching moment here, because when we're doing something for the first time, you might want to get a before picture, maybe, but you want to be present when you're learning how to do something for the first time, because this part of your brain's going, I don't think so. I don't think so. And up here you're going, hey, I've done lots of things before, not a big deal. When it's the first time, it's a big deal. So just let that be a little nugget you tuck away.
In fact, I was so confident. Now we step into a harness, the ropes go around us. Sheldon had demonstrated the process. He said, you know, even if you lose a grip on the rope, you'll go down fast, but you will survive. You'll just go down fast. And so I'd watched all this and I was really good to go with the process. In fact, I was so confident that I said, why don't we speed this up and take another person with us, because I'll be fine by myself with the rope and the selfie stick. And everybody else is like, no, we're not going with you, Forrest. This is not going to happen. So
just a second. Yeah. So you're up at the top, so you've watched other people go down.
Well, actually, no, because you see them go over the edge. But if you get close enough to the edge to look over, what happened to the ledge goes out like this, and then it comes back. And a key to this whole process was we didn't look at the cliff before we went. So I didn't know how far it was. I didn't know, what the undulations were going to be to it.
So you came up a back way?
We came up around the back way, and that's when I realized it was a good trip for you not to make the trail up. It was kind of intense. But so I'd watch people disappear over the edge, and then they came back up, and they're all smiles. I'm like, yeah, as long as you can go over the edge, you're good to go.
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake. So we're roped in, and we had a little rock where we practiced on when we first got started. I'm on the little rock, and I'm holding my camera. And at that point, you have to sit back into the rope. That's when I began to doubt myself. I'm still focused on the camera. Remember, I was, as Cheryl said, not present. But I realized that my grip on the rope, my one pride and joy is my grip, wasn't working. I said, I need a new pair of gloves. not the thing that was actually needed. And so as we started down, one of the ground crew said, Forrest, you really need to focus and give us your camera. And I was like, I was starting to lose my breath. Stress was kicking in. And I realized, yeah, I wanted the video, but I didn't want to lose $1,000 phone. So I gave my camera back to them. It's like, it's cool because I got the mic right here. You guys can catch me on the mic. So we headed over the edge.
Let me interrupt for just a second, Forrest, because there's a couple of more teaching moments that Forrest is giving you. When we get under stress, our fingers tighten up. And whenever you see people doing this because they're losing feeling in their fingers or their feet, it's usually an indication that the brain is going super stressed. So his brain and his fingers were like, yeah, we're not talking to each other. And the brain's going, you hold on really tight. Like, hold on like your life depends on it. And their fingers are going, I'm tight as I can be. And it's not enough. Oh, well, let's just get gloves. No, this communication was shutting down. And as that was shutting down, was happening. And for someone who's had a breathing issue all of his life,
well, breathing is where the stressor, in other words, when we talk about going into threat, the brain begins to shut down. How do we keep you from doing something? So for me, I didn't need pain. The easiest way to shut me down is to take away my capacity for breathing. Now, at that point would have been a really good time to have cleared my mind and said, what's the first thing I need to do? I needed to pause right at the edge. Now, I'm also got a height issue, a height, thing. So I didn't want to turn around and do this or this because that would freak me out. I just wanted to stay focused on the rope and holding on because I was good at that. But I'm there. It would have been a really good time to just taken a couple of breaths, focus back on my coach, who was very good at this. His voice was starting to do this. I knew he was there. I knew I would be okay, but everything else was shutting down. But that's where rule number one of this whole process is, this is having a problem. This has become irrelevant.
Absent.
Mm-hmm. It was a really interesting experience. That's when I should have just stopped and breathed and said, Shelton, help me get through this. But I didn't want to be like that other person that went over the edge in fear and trepidation. I want to be that guy. That guy, yes.
So another little teaching point is that when we're doing something for the first time and we're not present, what our coach who's there that knows how to do this, they've done it many, many, many times. They've done it with different personalities and different ages and different situations. They can see what you can't see. They know where the problem areas are. The coach's voice, when we're not present, the coach's voice just seems to disappear. And it's like you can't hear. So for those of you who have asked me, okay, when I'm stuck, when I'm in a hyper, what do I do? At that point, my voice isn't there and I'm not there, but the teaching is. But if you haven't been practicing it so it's ingrained so it can come out of you automatically, it's not available. But that's also where a coach can help you go through simulated experiences and begin to interrupt a process that wasn't working and help you get present.
This wasn't even simulated. This was a memory from 1972 of rappelling and doing all these cool things on snow and ice. This was today going, I'm the brain and movement guy. This was watching everybody else do it. And then all of that shutting down, my breath going away. And we're about halfway down. This was like about 40 feet, so it wasn't a lot. We're about halfway down when I realized I've lost control of my breathing. It's like it just had been sucked out of me. I was still listening to Shelton, and he was like, do this, do that. So I was following the direction, but I was no longer enjoying the experience. And I think that had to do with how I set myself up. I really think, Cheryl, that I set myself up for failure coming into this, which goes back to my teaching of like, I wasn't really listening to the essence of my teaching. When I got to the bottom, I almost collapsed. Oh my gosh. And I had to sit down because that's when I realized it was like the wind had been knocked out of me and I needed to bring myself back.
So let me ask you a question. It sounds like from the top to the bottom had to have gone on for maybe 10, 15 minutes because it sounds like it was a very long time. Was it?
It was probably about a minute. It wasn't a big deal.
But it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. That's the piece. I didn't want to acknowledge that this was a big deal because it should have been easy for me. So what this was worth to me, the experience was worth a lot. But having a real life experience with what we teach in this program in terms of your brain was huge. And I also knew that I needed to do it again. We didn't have time that day, but I said, Shelton, I want to get together with you and learn how to do this because I saw the process I could go through. I saw that this particular activity was worth a lot to me in terms of learning about my brain, learning how to function, learning how to step into fear. This is a lot about stepping into fear because you literally back over the edge and you can't see anything, and you're sitting into the rope. And again, I knew that the rope was safe. I knew that the belt was safe. I knew that how I was gripping the rope was all safe.
This didn't.
But this had never had that experience. So the experience was amazing. I got back to camp and Cheryl said, I should reset your vagus nerve. I'm like, no, I'm fine. That was like mistake number next, whichever one that was. We should have immediately gone through and done those resets because I was a mess. It took me most of the evening to recover from this 2-minute little excursion over the edge.
So I'm going to ask you a question. What are the 2 or 3 things you learned for you, and what couple of things did you learn as a coach to help other people with movement? So 2 questions.
I learned that what we teach is really good, but it also applies to me. I learned that the coach really matters. I learned that when you're in a situation, you've got to be focused on what matters, not something silly like a YouTube video. And I guess I learned that
breathing really matters.
Breathing matters. Your brain is going to pick out where it can shut you down the fastest. If I'd had to go a lot further, the breathing issue would have become a real serious problem. So we've got to be present. We've got to listen to our coach. We've got to take baby steps. We have to breathe. We have to allow ourselves to be aware. And again, you've got to have that coach that you trust.
And that really courage to do something new isn't arrogance. It's courage to do the baby steps and be coachable.
I think the arrogance was a big part because everybody else that went over acknowledged their weakness and they were focused on the coach. I was sitting there going, I actually said this to myself. It's nice he's with me, but I don't need him. There was an arrogance. There was a pride to it. It's like, I've got the rope. I've got the camera. You all stand back. Nobody else wanted to go over with me. I think everybody else sure went over with much more humility, even the ones who were more athletic than me. So I think there was an attitude going into this that really cost me. So why don't you wrap this up? So
a couple of things that was really good with this is that one of the things I appreciate about Forrest is his stability. His stability with his feet, his stability and his personality are rock solid, and he's really good at that. He's really good at stepping into new situations. But for all of us, no matter what we're really, really good at and what's easy, when we go into a new situation, arrogance or fear can shut us down.
Well, pride. I like the word pride better than arrogance.
Okay. Pride instead of arrogance. They kind of go together, but whichever one you want to use, or fear, are very expensive because they activate and run this part of our brain, and we won't have the best experience possible. A coach can know a whole lot, but the humility to be teachable with the coach is as important as the coach themselves. So I think Forrest and I would really encourage you that when you're going through life, coaches matter. Forrest is doing pickleball and he decided, you know what? I need a coach so I can become really good at it. Well, in life, we need coaches, people who can help us nutritionally, emotionally, with movement, so we can put things back together that maybe have been torn apart, never were activated, or it just needs to be rehabbed and made better. So if I can wrap up, coaches matter. The attitude with which you choose to learn and be coached matters from you. Learn to be present, and if in doubt, breathe. Breathe. That really matters. So as we're going through this series on fear, and we're going to look at other emotions later, this is a great story. My stories are different because I'm different, and your stories will be different because you're different. But coaches matter. Be teachable so that you don't miss out on the gems that you're being given, and never underestimate breathing and baby steps.
And probably it might be good to sign up for a rock climbing course if you're in doubt about any of this.
Okay, thanks for joining us on this session. Join us next week when we talk about fear and how it impacts your voice and your memory.